me say this simply and clearly.
Johnny, what's going on with this bloody Ukraine war? The Ukraine, Johnny? Well, I reckon it's getting bloody worse. Is it ever going to end? And now you got bloody Vladimir mobilising thousands of men, Johnny. Between the ages of 18 and fucking 65 or something. And half of them are bloody shit scared and don't want to go.
I am not going to die for Putin, quote unquote. That is the level of outrage on the ground, and the Kremlin has a serious problem to deal with. These protests are just the tip of the iceberg.
And who could blame them?
This is one of many border crossings between Russia and Georgia. It's become drastically busier since Vladimir Putin announced partial mobilization in his country. A 10-kilometre long queue of vehicles now stretches from the border as people flee their homes to avoid being called up to fight a war many don't agree with.
Yeah, Vladimir just seems to do what he likes. Johnny, would you like to be bloody called up to go and fight some fucking war in New Zealand or something? Should you be bloody answering the call of duty from your country, Johnny? Isn't that what you're supposed to bloody well do? It got me thinking, Johnny, with thousands of young blokes crossing the border and pissing off and getting the hell out of Russia, it got me thinking, what if everybody started doing that? Most of the population just said, fuck that, and started nicking off. Would the government even have a government then? Well, yeah, I'd be leaving. You can bring in all the orders you want, but we're not going to do it. I mean, there must be a tipping point somewhere where the government...
In Russia, so a lot of people I've spoken to, as alarmed as this in recent years, as the sort of levels of anxiety they're expressing right now, thousands of them, we've seen the images, are still struggling to get out of the country, to avoid being pressed into military service in what the Kremlin calls its partial mobilization.
And when you realise that where you've sent your troops, there are people trying to kill our troops on a daily basis.
Call up in Russia since World War II, a 300,000 person partial mobilization. Vladimir Putin trying to restore his battered forces in Ukraine in the wake of major setbacks.
I mean, there must be a tipping point somewhere, Johnny, where the government says, well, we've got no one to fight. We can't just bloody shoot everybody.
Elsewhere in the province, people are risking their lives by standing up to this officer who's shooting into the air. Here in the Siberian Sakha Republic, a group of predominantly female protesters performed a traditional folk dance around police.
So, Johnny, let me get this straight. If you have a country that starts a war and then you call up all its citizens and they don't want to fight, does that mean you saying there wouldn't be a war? Then, what if everybody in every country just said, no, we're not going to fight anymore. Sorry, we're not fighting anymore. What do you mean? If everybody refused? Well, I suppose if everybody refused, well, then there'd be no fighting.
What do you want me to do, draw you a picture?
Across the entire country, though, an eruption of anger at Putin's forced mobilizations has seen distraught protesters risking jail, even direct conscription into the ranks to speak out. People here are simply terrified of loved ones being sent to kill or be killed in Ukraine.
Would that mean that there would be the end, or would we just or would they just send in missiles? But who would be sending in the missiles? Because if everybody in the... Oh, that's bullshit, Johnny. If everybody in the country refuses to obey the government, well, then the government isn't really in charge. Johnny, you've gone off half-cocked with this bloody episode, as usual. Those days are gone, Johnny, I reckon. It's a bit like the Olympics. The Olympics? Yeah, the Olympics. You can't compare bloody fighting in a war with the Olympics, can you? I mean, what if you got a whole lot of people in a country like, say, Australia, where you got hundreds of mixed races, mixed bloody countries? I suppose it is a bit similar now you think about it. There's mixed bloody countries, and they're all mingled up together, and you go to war with a certain country. Well, what sort of problems does that raise? I mean, we've got a lot of bloody Chinese here, Johnny, and I've got nothing against the Chinese, except they're a bloody warmongering bunch of pricks. But nothing. Oh, Johnny, I think that sounds like racist bullshit. I mean, it's all very well having a country, Johnny, but if the country doesn't want to actually go to war, nobody in the country wants to go to war, well, you can't really have a war, can you?
These are heartbreaking scenes from Dagestan in southern Russia, where wives and mothers, hoping for a last glimpse of loved ones, are wailing in despair. The Kremlin says this is just a partial mobilization, but rights activists tell CNN ethnic minorities in remote regions of Russia are being disproportionately called up. One way, perhaps, of hiding the impact.
Well, yeah, the world's got to start thinking about that, Johnny. But in the meantime, that would probably mean the more aggressive countries would say, fuck Australia, they don't want to fight. They don't want to fight at all, so we'll just march in there and take over. It could lead to that. So we've got to be wary. So there's my 2 bobs worth, Johnny. On international TV, I might add that I put it out there. Well, patriotism can only go so far, Johnny, let's face it.
Can we overcome tyranny when the people are complacent? No.